I met Mason on a rainy Tuesday while crying in a bookstore aisle. That should have been my warning sign. That the first time someone saw me for who I really was, I was already falling apart. I had just stepped away from a call with my mother, my hands shaking, my eyes glassy. She'd told me, yet again, that maybe if I smiled more, he wouldn't have left. I remember holding a paperback about trauma recovery, trying not to let the tears spill over, when a voice behind me said that one's good, but the ending is way too neat. I turned. He had a kind smile, tousled dark hair, and an umbrella dripping water onto the hardwood floor. "I'm sorry," he said. That was probably the worst possible opening line. I almost laughed, which surprised me. Something about the way he stood there, casual, warm, like we'd already been talking for years, made me feel like I could breathe for the first time in months. That was Mason, from the very beginning. He knew how to find the cracks in my armor, and not just push his way in. He made it feel like shelter, like safety. We had coffee 2 hours later. He didn't ask for my number. He just said, "I'll be back here Thursday. Same time. You can show me how that book really ends." I showed up, of course, and he was there. No fanfare, just a small wave and 2 coffees, already on the table. The first 2 months felt like something out of a soft indie movie. He didn't try too hard. He never asked invasive questions, just let me talk when I needed to, and stayed quiet when I didn't. He walked me to my car, waited until I unlocked the door before he left. He never pushed, never assumed. And when he finally kissed me under a streetlight with fog rolling off the sidewalk like a stage curtain, it was slow, deliberate, and kind. Looking back now, I think that moment was the start of the unraveling, because real life doesn't move like a movie, and no one, no matter how gentle, gets everything right that easily. The first red flag came wrapped in lavender paper. It was a gift, a necklace, simple silver with a tiny charm. I'd mentioned once, in passing, how I'd always wanted a charm, shaped like a door, because of some story I read as a kid. He remembered, and there it was, dangling from a chain in my hand. "I just want you to always know," he said softly, "you can come home to me." It was beautiful, thoughtful, and way too much for someone I'd known less than 3 months. But I ignored that feeling. I told myself I was just being cold, guarded, too wounded from the last guy. The one who'd ghosted me the second I started talking about depression. Mason was the opposite. He asked how I was sleeping. He offered to pick up groceries when I said I couldn't get out of bed. The thing is, when you've been starving, even a crumb feels like a feast. And Mason gave me the whole bakery, until it became a cage. It started slowly. He noticed when I didn't answer texts fast enough. But he never accused me. He just asked if I was okay, if something was wrong, if I was losing interest. Then he'd back off, and I'd feel guilty because he was being so nice. The first time he showed up at my work, I was touched. He brought me lunch, smiled at my co-workers, sat in the lobby for an hour waiting for my break. The second time, he stayed all day. He said he just wanted to make sure I was okay, that the guy I sat next to in the break room seemed a little flirty. Laughed it off. Told him not to worry. I should have been worrying. The third time he showed up 2 weeks later, I was in a meeting. I didn't see his messages. 5 of them in a row, then 6 more, each one shorter and more frantic than the last. By the time I came out, he was waiting at the receptionist desk. His eyes were red. His voice was quiet. "You scared me," he said. I apologized, like it was my fault. And that's how it works, doesn't it? It's not the shouting, not at first. It's the gentle things, the slow erosion of space, the way the boundaries shift and slide until you can't tell whether you're being cared for or caged. A month later, he asked for my passwords, not demanded, asked. Said it was about transparency, that he was tired of being lied to in the past, that he just wanted to be sure this wasn't another waste of his time. And I gave them to him, because I loved him, because I wanted to prove I had nothing to hide, because I didn't realize how far I'd already been pulled under. The first time I tried to leave, it didn't go how I thought. I'd packed a small bag, nothing dramatic, just enough for a few nights at my sister's place. I waited until Mason was out running errands, or so I thought, and grabbed my keys from the counter. He was standing at the door. His expression was blank, but his hands were shaking. Going somewhere, he asked. I couldn't speak. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. He just reached into his pocket, pulled out the necklace, the charm, and held it up. You said I was home. I don't know. Why that moment scared me more than anything else. Maybe because he didn't look angry. He looked hurt. And in that look, I saw something dark unraveling. Not rage, not violence, but something colder. Something that doesn't need to scream to be deadly. That night, I stayed. And the next, and the one after that. I stopped talking to friends. Not because he told me to, because it was easier. Because every time I tried to go out, Mason would get quiet, withdrawn, like I'd abandoned him. Then the nightmares started. I would wake up to find him watching me sleep, just sitting there. One night I asked him why. He smiled. I had a dream, he whispered, that you left me. So I wanted to see you, to remind myself you're still here. I pretended to fall back asleep. I didn't sleep again for 3 days. I started planning. I waited until he had a work trip scheduled. I packed everything I could fit into a single duffel bag and texted my friend to meet me outside the building. I never made it, because the night before his trip, Mason broke down in tears, said he couldn't go, that he had a feeling something was wrong, that the thought of leaving me alone made him sick. I almost believed him, until I checked his bag. No clothes, no toiletries, just a recorder, one of those little pocket dictaphones. I pressed play. The only thing on it was my voice, sleeping, breathing, whispering his name. He had recorded me while I slept. Over and over, I ran. That night, I didn't pack anything. I just grabbed my shoes, bolted down the stairs, and didn't stop until I was inside a 24-hour diner 2 blocks away. I called my friend, then the police. Mason never showed up to his job again. He didn't answer the door when they came to his apartment. It was empty. He was gone. That was 3 years ago. Sometimes I still get letters. No return address. No handwriting. Just blank paper with small lines. Scratched into the surface. One letter. Then 2. Then 3. Always in the same pattern. 3 knocks. 3 scratches. I changed my name, my city, my hair. But I still feel him, the way people feel. Weather changing. And I know somewhere he's still watching. Because sometimes when I'm alone, I hear my name, soft, gentle, like a breath against my neck. And I remember the first thing he ever said to me. That one's good, but the ending is way too neat, way too neat. I was 20 when I met Trevor. It was the kind of winter where every breath turned into fog, and every shadow felt a little too close. I'd just moved out of my mom's apartment for the first time, not because I was ready, but because I needed to prove to myself I could. I worked part-time at the small campus bookstore, tucked between a thrift shop and an old record store no one really visited anymore. The pay was awful, but the quiet suited me. I wasn't the kind of girl who needed much noise. Just a warm mug in my hand and a window to stare out of while pretending I was somewhere else. That's where Trevor found me. He came in on a Wednesday afternoon, the kind where the sky goes dark by 4 and everything outside looks like it's been dipped in ink. He was taller than I usually liked, broad shoulders under a dark wool coat. He had one of those faces that looked like it belonged in another decade, a little too symmetrical, a little too polished. He didn't ask for help finding anything, just walked straight over to the register, smiled like we'd known each other already, and said, "You look like you've got a story in your eyes." I should have rolled my eyes, should have dismissed him as another bored guy looking for someone soft to talk to. But there was something about his voice, something low and measured, like he was whispering a secret even when he wasn't. We talked for 15 minutes that day, about nothing, really. Books I hadn't read, music I pretended to know. He didn't push, just smiled when I told him I'd look into the authors he mentioned. When he left, he didn't ask for my number. He just said, "I'll be back," and I believed him. He showed up again the next day, and the day after that. Sometimes he bought something, sometimes he didn't. Once, he brought me a thermos of hot chocolate, said it was homemade, spiced with something special. It was nutmeg and a little too much charm. Still remembered the first time he touched me. It was just a brush of fingers as he handed me a receipt. Barely there, but enough to send a spark up my arm. I didn't know yet what it would grow into. We started dating 2 weeks later. I was cautious at first, careful with my words. I'd been burned before, we all have, and I wasn't eager to fall into the same kind of loneliness disguised as love. But Trevor made it easy. He didn't ask too many questions, never made fun of my anxiety, held doors open like he meant it. He called me his quiet girl, and somehow I liked it. Never posted about me. Said he didn't like social media at first. That felt mature, grounded, like he wasn't performing anything. But looking back, I think he just didn't want to be found. The first real red flag came the night I got a ride home from a coworker. It was harmless. My car had died in the lot, and Daniel, sweet, happily married Daniel, offered to drive me the 5 minutes to my apartment. We didn't talk about anything personal. He barely even looked at me. But when I got inside, Trevor was already waiting. He'd let himself in. Said he'd forgotten his scarf the last time he visited. I froze. I hadn't given him a key. He smiled, held up a spare I didn't even know was missing. "You left it under the mat, remember? Just in case." I hadn't, but I nodded. Then he asked, "Who's Daniel?" It took me a second to realize I hadn't said his name yet. Trevor's face didn't change, but his eyes, they got still, quiet, like the surface of a frozen lake. "Do you want to tell me anything?" he asked. I laughed awkwardly, said it was just a ride. "Nothing more." He smiled again. "I believe you." That should have been the end of it. It WASN single quotes. The next morning, Daniel's wife called the store. She sounded shaken, said someone had let the air out of their tires during the night. Nothing was stolen, but there was a photo slipped under the windshield wiper. It was of Daniel and me getting out of the car. I didn't tell anyone, not even Daniel. I just went cold. all over, like the frost had crept inside my bones. I tried to talk to Trevor about it the next night. I didn't accuse him, I just mentioned it. His reaction was soft, controlled. "I'd never do something like that," he said. Then he leaned in. "But if someone did, maybe they were just trying to protect what matters." He kissed my forehead after that, and I let him, because love, when you're lonely, has a way of making you bend. We moved in together that spring. It wasn't planned. He started staying over more and more, bringing clothes, food, cleaning supplies. Eventually, he just stopped leaving. My apartment was small, just a narrow hallway, a galley kitchen, and one sunlit bedroom with a window that faced the alley. He installed blackout curtains, said the sunlight was waking him up too early. I didn't notice how dark it got, not just in the room, but in me. He started asking questions about my day, who I saw, what I ate. Then he started answering for me. "You don't like that place, remember? You're allergic to that. You said she made you uncomfortable." Sometimes I hadn't said those things. Sometimes I started to wonder if I had. I stopped texting friends. He'd ask to see my phone, casually, just curious. Sometimes he'd send messages for me. "You're busy," he'd say. I stopped being invited, and, slowly, the walls of our apartment became the whole world. He was sweet, though. Always sweet. He cooked, he cleaned. He left little notes, but he also rearranged the furniture without asking, put a lock on the inside of the bedroom door just in case, replaced my toothbrush with a new one, a firmer one. Said it was better. For my gums, the things that make you question yourself are never loud. They're quiet, accumulative, like dripping water. One day I woke up, and I didn't recognize myself in the mirror. He said I looked tired, said he liked me better without makeup. Anyway, said I was finally becoming mine again. Mine. I didn't know I was anyone's to begin with. The final straw wasn't a fight. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't a broken plate. It was silence. A Tuesday afternoon, I came home early, sick from work, and found him in the kitchen. He didn't hear me come in. He was whispering. At first I thought he was on the phone, but there was no phone. He was standing in front of the fridge, whispering to the wall. "There's no need to rush her," he said. "She's almost ready." I froze. I didn't move, didn't breathe. He paused, then turned, smiled. "You're home early." I nodded, went straight to the bedroom, locked the door, and cried without sound. That night, I waited until he was asleep. I packed a bag, quiet, careful, but when I stepped into the hall, he was there, just standing, like he'd been waiting. "You forgot your toothbrush," he said. Held it out like a trophy. "I'm just going to my sister's," I whispered. He tilted his head. "She's not expecting you." I froze. He'd blocked her months ago. He'd read the messages, deleted the emails. I realized, in that moment, that I wasn't in a relationship anymore. I was in a trap, so I did the only thing I could. I smiled, took the toothbrush, and walked back into the room, waited until he went back to sleep. Then I opened the window and climbed out into the rain. I walked for 2 miles, barefoot, didn't stop, didn't cry, called my mum from a gas station, Payphone. She picked me up in under 20 minutes. I never went back. Police searched the apartment. A week later, found cameras, not just in the common areas, in the bathroom, the closet, even one pointed directly at my pillow. he was gone, disappeared without a trace. But sometimes I still get packages. No return address, inside a single item, a toothbrush, firmer than the last, always wrapped in lavender paper. I didn't think much of it at first. Passwords are easy to forget, easy to reset, and sometimes people guess them, especially if you know someone well. Birthdays, favorite bands, your pet's name. That's how I explained it to myself the first time it happened, but the second time, and the third, it stopped being a coincidence. I was 24 when I met Liam, working full-time at a copy shop downtown, going to night school twice a week. Life was grey back then, not sad, just muted, like everything had been run through. The same dull Instagram filter. Liam changed that. He was vibrant in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. Smart, funny, magnetic. The kind of guy who always seemed to be in the center of the room without trying. He was 2 years older than me and worked in IT for a security firm, which made him sound more intimidating than he really was. We met on a dating app, of all places. His profile was simple. No shirtless pics, no cringe bios, just a blurry photo of him hiking and one line: "I fix things that are broken." I thought it was cute. I messaged first. From the first night, we clicked. Talked for 4 hours straight. About nothing and everything. Childhood stories, worst jobs, the best flavor of ice cream, mint chocolate chip. Obviously, closing parenthesis. By date 3, I was hooked. He wasn't pushy, wasn't flashy, just calm, warm. The kind of warmth you want to be near when the rest of the world feels too sharp. He asked questions about my job. Listened, really listened. He remembered things, tiny details, like the name of my 6th grade teacher, or the fact that I still double knot my shoes out of habit. At the time, I thought it was charming. Now, I wonder if it was. Research: the first time something odd happened was with my Netflix account. Tried to log in one night after work and found that the password had changed. Not a big deal. I reset it. Thought maybe my little brother had been messing around again. He lived across town and had the password too, but when I texted him, he said he hadn't used it in weeks. The new password, it was my old Tumblr username. From high school, I hadn't told anyone that. I didn't even remember it until I saw it. Liam laughed it off when I mentioned it. Said it sounded like my brother was playing games. But the next day, my Spotify was different too. New playlists, tracks I'd never added, titles like "You're Mine" and "Wake Up, Baby." Still, I rationalized. Liam and I were spending more time together by then. He had his own toothbrush in my bathroom, his favorite cereal in my cabinet. Sometimes he borrowed my laptop to check email. Maybe it was just him being sweet, trying to surprise me, right? But then my Google Maps history started showing routes I hadn't taken. I'd open the app and see that I'd visited places I hadn't been. The alley behind my office, the gym I used to go to 2 years ago, the street where my ex lived. I checked my location settings. They were on and shared with him. He never asked for access. I never gave it. But somehow, he had it anyway. I confronted him, half joking, half nervous, and he smiled. "I just like knowing you're safe," he said. "Is that so bad?" I didn't know what to say. He kissed my forehead. "You can check mine too, if you want." He made me feel crazy for being concerned, and guilty too, because he'd never raised his voice, never made me feel unsafe. Not directly, but things started to change after that. Subtly, My texts would already be read. Before I opened them, emails would be marked as seen. Even if I hadn't looked, my phone would lag just a little, like something was running. In the background, he always seemed to know things. I hadn't told him where I'd gone for lunch, who I saw at the coffee shop, what grade I got on my midterm, the night he showed up at my favorite cafe without me inviting him. I told myself it was coincidence, but he said, I figured you'd need a pick-me-up after that pop quiz. I hadn't posted about it, hadn't told anyone. I asked him how he knew. He just smiled. Lucky guess. But there was something in the way he said it, something cold under the warmth. And then the dreams started, at first. They were just flickers. Me standing in a hallway, doors closed all around. A sound behind one of them, breathing. Then I'd wake up and find my phone face down, my camera light on. One night, I woke to a flash. He was standing over me, phone in hand, said he was taking a picture because I looked so peaceful. I asked him to delete it. He said he already had. But the next morning, my Google Photos had a new album hidden, labeled when she sleeps. There were 23 pictures, all taken at night, all of me. I didn't know what to do. My chest felt like a locked box, something tight and old pressing against the ribs. I changed my phone password. He texted me, the new one, an hour later. I figured it out, he said. You used our anniversary. Cute. I confronted him again, this time with shaking hands. You're in my phone. You're tracking me. He didn't deny it. Didn't even flinch. It's not tracking if it's love, he said. You share yourself with people you trust. I told him to leave. He didn't. Not right away, just stood there, smiling. You'll come around. That night, I backed up all my files, reset everything, changed my numbers, my passwords, wiped my phone. I moved back in with my mum, blocked every account I could think of. He sent me one final email. No subject, no text, just an image. It was a photo of me sleeping, time-stamped from the night before, and written across the bottom, in neat white text. I'm still watching out for you. I reported him, filed for a restraining order, but the police said there was no proof of harm, just digital footprints. They said it was probably over now, but I still cover my laptop, camera with tape, still sleep with my phone in a drawer, battery out. And sometimes, when I wake in the middle of the night, I feel like someone's still watching me, from somewhere I can't see, from a window I didn't know was there. They say never meet your heroes. I'd like to add, never meet the man who said all the right things for too many nights in a row, especially if you've never heard him laugh out loud. I was 19, first year out of high school, still figuring out if I wanted to go to college or not. Working nights at a diner with a teal uniform and shoes that always smelled like fryer oil. I wasn't special. Not in the way I thought you had to be for something bad to happen, and maybe that's what made it easier for it too. His name, at least, the name he gave me, was Ellis. We met online, not on Tinder or anything obvious. Just some forum for graphic novels. I made a joke about panel pacing and he messaged me. Said he liked my mind. Said I was smart in a way that made people uncomfortable. That's how it started. Just words. He wasn't pushy. In fact, he was slow, respectful. Didn't ask for photos. Didn't comment on mine. He talked about books, about being disconnected from this generation's obsession with noise. He told me I seemed older than my age, that I had an aura, When someone tells you they see you, especially when you don't even see yourself yet, it sticks. We moved to texting, then to nightly voice notes. His voice, I still remember it, soft, low. He always spoke like he was just about to fall asleep, or like he was telling you a secret no one else should know. After 3 weeks, we talked every night. After 4, I was falling asleep with his voice in my ear. He told me he lived just a couple towns over, that he worked from home, that he'd love to meet someday, but only if you want to, he said. No pressure, little star. He called me that often, little star. Looking back, I wonder how many others he called that too. It was around week 6 when I agreed to meet. A coffee shop, noon public. I wore my favorite sweater. Lip gloss, nothing fancy, but I felt like this moment mattered. Like if I got it right, something about my life would finally shift into place. He was late, 10 minutes, then 20. I was about to text him when the bell above the door rang, and he stepped in. He looked different, older, for one. Not dramatically, but the soft jawline from his profile picture had hardened. His hair was shorter. His eyes, something about them wasn't quite right. He saw me, smiled. I smiled back, hesitated. Ellis, I asked. He nodded, sat down, apologized for being late, lost track of time. The first thing he did was touch my hand. Not in a romantic way, just a palm-flat press, like he was checking my temperature. You feel warm, he said, like I imagined. I laughed nervously. We talked, sort of. Mostly, he watched me. I asked questions about his job, the freelance tech work he'd mentioned. He answered vaguely. I asked about his favorite books. He said he liked anything about people losing their minds. I don't remember what I ordered. I just remember watching the way he stirred his drink over and over, like he couldn't let it settle. He walked me to my car, asked if he could see me again. I said I'd think about it. That night, he didn't text. Then came the voicemail. I didn't mean to scare you, he said. Sometimes I get overwhelmed around people I like, but I like you. I really do. And I think I could love you, too. That was the first time my stomach sank. I didn't reply. Told myself it was a misstep, that maybe he was just awkward. Then my roommate Jamie told me someone had come by asking for me. A man. Said he was my friend Ellis. She thought it was weird, especially because he knew her name. Knew we lived together. I hadn't given him that info. I texted him, asked what that was about. He replied, I just wanted to know if you were okay. You didn't answer last night. I blocked his number. That should have been it. But it wasn't. He made new ones. Called from different area codes. Left voicemails that got increasingly frantic. You said you'd think about seeing me again. That meant something. That wasn't. Nothing. You're hurting me on purpose now. I know where you work. You think I won't come. I will. The last voicemail was silent, just his breathing, slow, deliberate. Then a whisper, you're still my little star. I went. To the police, they said, unless he made a direct threat, they couldn't do much, so I changed my number. Quit my job. Moved in with my aunt across the state. For a while, it worked. Until I got the package. No return address. Inside, a single cassette tape. I didn't own a player. My cousin found one at a thrift store. We sat on the floor, plugged it in. The tape crackled. Then, my voice, reading something I didn't remember ever saying. I think I love him, the recording said, even though I've never met him. He makes me feel like I exist. I sat frozen. He had recorded our voice calls, all of them. The next voice was his. Proof, he said. In case you forget how we felt. The last sound was a door creaking. Shut, then silence. We never called the police again. We moved. Again. I scrubbed every account I had. Changed my name on social media. Deleted old photos. But sometimes I still see him. Not in person, not clearly. Just a man across the street. On the other side of a train. In the window of a bus, watching Dot, and I wonder, did he ever really stop? Or am I just one more voice on a tape he still plays at night? I always believed love was supposed to fix you, that if you found the right person, all the jagged edges inside would finally make sense, fit together into something smooth and safe. That was before him, before I learned some people don't love you to make you whole. They love you because you're broken, and they want to keep you that way. I was 23, fresh out of a long-term relationship that left me unsure of everything. My looks, my instincts, my ability to trust. I'd lost 10 pounds, gained insomnia, and moved into a studio apartment with one lamp and no curtains. It wasn't rock bottom, but I could see it from there. That's when I met Colby. He wasn't flashy. No six-pack, no loud confidence, just quiet certainty. A used bookstore employee who smelled like leather and rain and always had ink stains on his fingers. I walked in one evening, looking for nothing, really, and he asked if I liked haunted houses. That was the first thing he ever said to me. Not hello. Not, can I help you? Just, do you like haunted houses? I laughed, said, why? And he replied, because you walk like you've lived in one. I should have left right then. Instead, I stayed. We talked for an hour that night about books, childhood fears, things we regretted. It felt like a dream, the kind you only remember in fragments the next morning. He asked if he could see me again. I said yes. Our first date was in a cemetery. He said the quiet helped him think. We sat on a cold marble bench, surrounded by names and dates. He pointed out which tombstones he liked best, the ones with elaborate angels or strange epitaphs. I didn't ask why. I was too busy falling under whatever spell he wove between his words. Colby listened like no one else ever had, not just to what I said, but to what I didn't. He'd ask questions that made me pause, made me excavate things I'd buried. What was your mum like when you were 8? Do you remember the first time you felt ashamed? Somehow, it felt like therapy at first. He started leaving me notes, folded slips of paper in my jacket pocket or purse. You looked like a ghost today. I hope you haunt me. I dreamed of your voice last night. It was the only sound in a house full of screams. They were strange, but poetic. I convinced myself it was just his way. He never raised his voice, never got angry, but slowly I stopped laughing as much. He didn't like it when I wore bright colors. Said they made me look like I was pretending to be okay. He didn't. Like it when I smiled at strangers. Said they hadn't earned it. He didn't like it when I brought up my ex, even just in passing. You're still tethered, he said once. I don't want to be part of a tug-of-war. I started to shrink a little. By little, without noticing. I deleted photos, stopped going out with friends, called in sick more often than I should have. He told me I was better when I was quiet. Still waters run deep, he whispered once, curling a strand of my hair around his finger. and you were made to drown people. I didn't know what he meant not then. The first time I tried to leave was after I found the journal, not mine, his, tucked behind a loose panel in his bookshelf. It wasn't like a diary, more like a log. Names, dates, descriptions. All women. I skimmed one entry. Sylvie vibrant at first, then too loud, stopped appreciating the quiet, broke things on her way out. Then another, Tamrin resisted being seen. Couldn't handle being known, left during a thunderstorm, took 3 weeks to stop hearing her voice in the walls. And then mine, Alina, brittle but willing, collectible, will take longer to break, but worth the process. I froze, put the journal back, and told him I was sick. He brought me soup, rubbed my feet, whispered things I don't remember now. That night, I couldn't sleep. The next morning, I packed a bag, but the front door was bolted shut from the outside. Colby said it was a temporary precaution. Someone's been stealing packages, he said. Can't be too careful. There were locks on every window. I didn't know that before. He asked if I wanted tea. I said yes. He sat across from me, smiled. You found the journal, didn't you? I didn't answer. He nodded. It's okay, they all do, eventually. I told him I wanted to go home. You are home. The next 3 days were blurred, I pretended. I smiled. I listened to his stories. He told me about a dream he had where I turned to glass and he kept me in a museum. He said he'd build a case for me, velvet-lined, temperature-controlled. I said, that's sweet. On the 4th night, I found a screwdriver under the kitchen sink, waited until he fell asleep, removed the hinges from the bathroom window, climbed out barefoot. I ran 4 blocks before I saw another person, a woman walking her dog. I begged her to call the police. Colby was gone by the time they got there. The journal, too. They didn't find any trace of him. The store said he hadn't worked there in months, that he was never even officially on the books. I gave them his photos. They shrugged. I don't know where he went, but sometimes I find notes tucked in my mailbox, slipped into a library book, once, on the dashboard of my car. You're still my favorite. I keep the screwdriver in my purse now, not because I think I'll need it again, but because I know that once someone collects you, they never really let you go. It started with a voice, soft, gentle, familiar in a way that made my bones ache. I was asleep the first time I heard it, curled up in my tiny apartment under a pile of mismatched blankets, dreaming about something I can't remember now. And then, suddenly, the dream shifted. I was standing in the hallway outside my childhood bedroom. The air smelled like burned toast and pine cleaner, and from behind the door, I heard him, Emily. I missed you. I woke up shaking. My name is Emily Foster. I was 24 when I met Jonah. That was 5 years ago. Before I understood that not all hauntings come from ghosts. Some come from men who say they love you and never leave, even when they're supposed to. Jonah was my first real boyfriend. The kind you plan futures with. The kind who says things like someday and means them. We met in a library, of all places. I was shelving books for my work-study job. He was in the philosophy section, barefoot and quoting Rilke under his breath. He said I looked like the kind of girl who wrote letters she never sent. I said he looked like the kind of guy who read other people's journals. He smiled. We had coffee that night. Talked until the cafe closed. He told me he didn't believe in coincidence. that the universe stitched people together like constellations, carefully, deliberately. I believed him. For months, we were inseparable. He wrote me poems on the back of receipts, left dried lavender on my windowsill, said I had a storm, soul wrapped in milk glass skin. He was unlike anyone I'd ever known, and I fell hard. But there were cracks, little ones. He didn't like when I went out without him, said the world was too loud, that it tainted the softness I carried. Didn't like my phone, called it a portal of corruption, asked me to delete social media, told me we were better off disconnected. At first, I agreed. It felt romantic, us against the noise, but the silence grew too thick. He began asking strange questions. Have you ever felt watched while dreaming? Do you think souls can bond tighter than skin? Once, I woke up to find him sitting at the edge of the bed, staring at me, just watching. He said he wanted to memorize the way I breathed. It was beautiful, he said. The way I looked when I wasn't thinking. I should have left then, but I didn't, because I didn't want to break the spell. I told myself he was just intense, sensitive. The truth was uglier than that. The first nightmare came after our 1-year anniversary. I dreamed I was lying in bed, our bed, but everything was wrong. The room was too quiet, the shadows too thick. When I tried to move, I couldn't. My body was heavy, paralyzed, and then I heard it, his voice, whispering my name over and over again. Emily, Emily, Emily. I tried to scream, but my lips wouldn't move, and then he was there, in the dream, standing over me, smiling. Double quotes, "You can't leave," he said. "Not here, not ever." I woke up choking. He was sleeping beside me, or pretending to. The next morning, he asked if I slept well. I didn't answer that night. I locked the bedroom door. By the next week, the dreams had escalated. He wasn't just there, he was controlling them, directing them. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, sometimes smiling, sometimes crying, sometimes angry, but always watching. I stopped sleeping. I started researching sleep paralysis, lucid dreaming, night terrors, but nothing explained what was happening, because the things he said in the dreams, they matched things I'd never told him in real life. Secrets from childhood, memories I hadn't spoken aloud. Once, I dreamed I was 6 years old again, sitting under the porch with my childhood dog. He'd died that summer. Jonah was there, he said. "He's not gone, Emily. I brought him back for you." The next day, I found a dead dog on my porch, same breed, same color, same color. I told myself it was a coincidence. I didn't believe that. I finally tried to end it. I told him I needed space, that my mind wasn't right. He cried, begged, promised to change. I didn't budge. He left. I blocked him on everything. Changed my locks, but he kept showing up. Not in real life, in my dreams, and the things he did there felt real. He'd locked me in rooms, tie me to beds, whisper things I couldn't repeat even now. He told me he was building a house for me, in the space between waking and sleep. "I'm in your bones now," he whispered once. "You can't unknow me." I started sleeping with lights on, music playing. Nothing helped. One night, I tried staying awake for 72 hours straight. On the third day, I collapsed, and the dream I had, it was the worst yet. He was waiting in a house I didn't recognize. All white walls, no windows. He told me it was my new forever, said I'd been dreaming long enough, that now I'd stay. I woke up bleeding, my wrists raw. like I'd been tied. I went to a sleep specialist. They said it was night terrors, sleepwalking. I didn't believe them, because 2 weeks later, I moved apartments, never told a soul my new address, and yet I woke up one night to find my front door ajar, and on the welcome mat, a piece of paper, one of his poems written in my handwriting. I'll see you when you're softer. I moved again, burned the poem, changed my name on everything I could. He hasn't shown up in dreams since, but sometimes, when I'm just starting to drift, I feel it. That weight like a memory crawling back into my skin, and I hear him far away, but getting closer. You can't dream without me, and God help me sometimes. I still want to. When you live alone, you learn to listen for the small sounds, the click of a lock, the creak of settling wood, the wind brushing against the edge of a window pane. I was 26 when I moved into my own apartment for the first time. A studio on the 3rd floor of an old brick building near the train line. Nothing fancy, one room, tiny kitchen, barely enough space for a bed and a bookshelf. But it was mine. My name is Ava, and this story isn't about love. It's about how fast it can turn into something else entirely. His name was Dean. We met through a dating app during the first cold week of October. He had a crooked smile and a golden retriever named Felix. Said he worked in IT, liked hiking, and played piano in his spare time. I remember thinking he seemed safe. That's how they get you, isn't it? Not with danger. With safety, our first date was uneventful in a good way. A walk through the park, hot cider, a kiss on the cheek. I wasn't expecting anything serious. I was fresh off a breakup, still in the phase of trying to remember what I liked to eat on my own. But Dean was persistent in that quiet, thoughtful way. He remembered my favorite tea, sent good morning texts every day, held doors open. Never rushed anything. By date 3, he was leaving notes in my mailbox. Just small things. A pressed flower, a napkin with a doodle of us on a park bench, a sticky note that said, "Sleep tight. Don't let the bedbugs gaslight." I laughed. That kind of stupid humor always gets me. We weren't official. Not yet, but he made it feel like we were. Like we always had been. That's when the rules started. Casual at first. Let me know when you get home, just so I know you're safe. Text me before bed, even if I fall asleep first. Don't forget our Sunday coffee. I look forward to it all week. Sweet, routine. It felt nice to be thought of. Until it didn't. Single quotes at the first time I missed a bedtime text. He called 3 times in a row. Left a voicemail that said, "I couldn't sleep. Thought something had happened. I need to hear your voice, okay?" I brushed it off. Told myself it was just care in a different costume. But the mask was slipping. He started showing up unannounced. Once at work, said he was in the area. Another time, outside my building, leaning on his car, holding a bouquet of lilacs. "I missed you," he said. I hadn't texted back for 2 hours. I remember the first time I felt afraid of him. We were watching a movie in my apartment, a romantic drama, the kind where everyone cries at the end. He turned to me suddenly, out of nowhere, and said, "Promise you won't leave me." I laughed. Thought he was joking. He didn't. "I mean it," he said. "If you ever leave, I won't be able to handle it." That night, after he left, I moved the deadbolt. Just in case. Then the dreams started. All of them the same. I'd wake up in my apartment in the dream, but something would be off. My door unlocked, my mug still warm, his cologne in the air. Once I dreamed I woke up with him sitting on my bed, just watching me. I told myself it was stress. I started sleeping with the hallway light on, but the real nightmare hadn't started yet. One night, I had friends over, just 2 of them. A board game, some drinks, nothing wild. I didn't invite Dean. We hadn't defined things, and I needed space. He texted. I didn't answer. He called. I let it ring at 11:13 p.m. He sent me a message. You forgot to say goodnight. I didn't reply. At 12:47 a.m., the fire alarm went off. Shrill, deafening. We evacuated, just in case. Outside, in the crowd of pajama-clad neighbors, I saw him. Dean, fully dressed, hands in his pockets, smiling. What are you doing here? Asked. He looked hurt. I saw the fire trucks. I came to make sure you were safe. But the trucks hadn't arrived yet. Only the alarm had gone off. I didn't say anything, but my stomach turned. Later, my upstairs neighbor told me the alarm was pulled, deliberately. No sign of fire. No electrical issue. I changed my locks the next day. Told Dean it wasn't working. He cried, texted, called, showed up outside work, said he was falling apart, said I was the only thing keeping him together. I stopped responding, and then, one night, I woke up, and he was inside, just standing there, in the corner of my apartment. Between the couch and the bookshelf, the streetlight cast his shadow, long and crooked. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. He didn't look angry. He looked calm, too calm. I missed you, he said. You didn't say goodnight again. He stepped closer. I finally screamed. The neighbors called the cops. They arrived 5 minutes later. Dean was gone, but he'd left something behind. A note on my pillow, in handwriting that wasn't mine. It's okay. I have a key now. I moved the next week, but sometimes, when I turn off the lights, just before sleep takes hold, I swear I hear him whisper, "Good night, Ava," and every time I do, I whisper back, just in case he's still listening. When I first moved in with Sean, I thought it was love. Not whirlwind, movie script love. Not flowers and fireworks, but something steadier, safe, maybe even boring. And at 29, after years of dating men who brought chaos wrapped in charisma, boring sounded like peace. We'd only been together 6 months when he brought it up. I've been thinking, he said one night while stirring spaghetti sauce. Rent's so high, and we basically live together already. He wasn't wrong. Most of my clothes were at his place. So was my toothbrush, my favorite mug. Even my cat, Clove, had stopped going back to my apartment. I hesitated, but he smiled and touched my hand gently. Think about it. No more back and forth. We could make this a home. He said it like a promise, so I moved in. Into his clean, quiet townhouse with grey furniture and a 2-white kitchen. He cleared out half the closet for me, gave me a drawer in the bathroom, started making room for my life in his world, or so I thought. The first time I noticed a camera, it was subtle, a little black dot on the bookshelf, tucked between dusty copies of books I never saw him read. Is this a camera? I asked Sean. Didn't flinch. Yeah, he said easily, just for security. I travel sometimes, remember? I nodded. Made sense then? I found another in the hallway. Then one over the back door. And another, this one, in the corner of the bedroom ceiling. Each time I brought it up, he had a ready excuse. Just trying to protect us. What if there's a break-in? You can never be too careful. Eventually, I stopped asking, but I started wondering why he always seemed to know where I'd been in the house. Why he'd say things like, "You spent a lot of time in the bathroom today," or "I saw you were up late reading again. You really need more sleep." At first I chalked it up to memory, coincidence, but the comments got more specific, more personal, more off. One day, I came home from work to find my favorite mug in the dishwasher, even though I hadn't used it that day. Sean just shrugged. "You left it on the windowsill. I washed it for you, but I hadn't. I'd left it in the cabinet." I remembered that detail, and that's when I realized he wasn't just watching, he was tracking. I started testing it, moving things when he wasn't home, swapping the order of the spice rack, flipping a book upside down, hiding my toothbrush in the linen closet. Every time, they'd be back to their usual places the next day. At first, I thought maybe he was just meticulous, but then one night, I woke up to him standing in the doorway, not doing anything, not moving, just standing there, arms at his sides, staring. "Sean," I whispered. He blinked slowly, then turned and walked away without a word. I didn't sleep after that. The next morning, he made coffee like nothing happened, asked if I wanted eggs or toast, kissed me on the forehead. I tried to convince myself I'd imagined it. Sleep paralysis, maybe. But the next night, it happened again. And the next, until one night I got up and found the door to the basement cracked open. Sean never went in the basement. Said it was just storage. But I walked down, barefoot on cold wooden stairs, heart pounding like a drum, and I found it. Not just a server rack humming in the corner, but a whole wall of screens, each one showing a different part of the house. The kitchen, the bathroom, the bedroom, the hallway, the office, even the litter box, even the shower, and on a small screen in the middle, labeled archived footage. I saw myself sleeping, changing, crying quietly into a towel after a phone call with my sister. I felt sick, and then I heard the basement door click shut behind me. Sean stood at the top of the stairs. "You weren't supposed to come down here," he said. His voice was low, steady, too steady. "You said the cameras were just for security." I managed to say. He tilted his head. "They are yours." "I want to leave," I said. He smiled. That same soft, gentle smile he wore the first time we kissed. "Why would you want to leave me? You're safer here than anywhere." "I'm not safe here." He stepped closer. "I've kept you safe from everything," he said. "You don't even realize how many things I've stopped, people I've warned away. You have no idea what I've done for you." "What do you mean, warned away?" He blinked. "That guy at your work, Marcus, the one who kept asking you questions. You followed me to work." Sean laughed quietly. "I didn't have to. He came to the house once. Remember, when you forgot your phone? I told him you were busy. He didn't come back after that." I felt my knees wobble. "What did you do?" "I protected you," he said again, as if I hadn't heard him the first 10 times. I tried to run past him, but he grabbed my wrist. "You're panicking," he whispered. "You always do this when you feel too much." I bit his hand, hard. He screamed, "Let go," and I ran, out the front door, barefoot again, heart slamming against my ribs. The neighbors didn't answer, but I found a 24-hour gas station, begged the clerk to call the police. They arrested him that night. Turns out, Sean had rigged the house with over 20 cameras, had been recording me for months, had a folder labeled with dates and times, organized by what I wore and where I cried. They charged him. He pled guilty. Did 18 months. That was 2 years ago. I live somewhere new now. No roommates, no boyfriend, just me and my cat, Clove. I cover every window at night. I unplug everything I don't use. I don't have smart lights or a smart speaker, and I met Wes when I was 21. It was late summer, just before my final year of college, and I was renting a room in a crumbling old house near campus with 2 other girls, one constantly studying for the MCAT, the other working nights at a pizza place. I felt invisible most of the time, which is probably why Wes saw me so clearly. He was my TA in a course I almost didn't take. Psychology of Violence. I enrolled because I needed an elective and thought the irony was funny. I'd never experienced anything close to violence. Not then. Wes was charming in that awkward, overly intellectual way. The kind who made terrible jokes under his breath during lectures, but always got a quiet laugh. He had brown eyes that looked like they'd seen too much, and a voice so calm it made you want to confess things, just to hear him speak more. When he asked me to grab coffee one day after class, I didn't hesitate. He said he liked that I sat near the front, that I always took notes by hand, that I wore cardigans even in the heat. I notice things, he said, with a small smile. You should be noticed. And I believed him. We didn't make it official right away, mostly because he was technically still my TA for 3 more weeks, but we started spending time together. He'd meet me outside class, offer to walk me home, bring me books he thought I'd like. He called me Sunflower, said I was soft, warm, and a little too eager to face the sun. It sounds sweet, doesn't it? But I think it was a warning, because Wes liked things he could bend toward him, and I was already leaning. The first time he touched my face, it was to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear. The second time, it was to cup my cheek and say, "You're so much prettier when you're not worried about what people think." That was the beginning of a pattern, a strange, subtle policing of my emotions. He didn't get angry when I was sad. He got disappointed, didn't like when I looked too tense, said I held stress in my face like a map. Once, while we were out for dinner, I frowned at something on my phone. He reached across the table, lifted my chin gently, and whispered, "Don't wrinkle your forehead like that. You look better when you smile." I smiled. Of course I did, because I wanted him to keep looking at me like I mattered. By the time the semester ended, we were officially dating. He helped me move into a new place, bought me a soft grey throw blanket and a second-hand bookshelf. He called it our nest. That winter, he got me a necklace, a small gold locket with nothing inside. "Fill it when you're ready," he said. But I never did, because by the time I realized I didn't want him that close to my skin, it was already too late. It wasn't sudden. It was slow, like a hand closing over a match before it could catch. He didn't yell, he didn't curse, he just suggested, "You should wear your hair up more. It makes your neck look elegant. You don't need that lipstick. It distracts. From your eyes, that dress is too tight. You don't want people getting the wrong idea." It was never a demand. Always a kindness, a correction made in the name of love. The scariest thing, I started to agree with him. I wore looser clothes, deleted half my selfies, stopped going out with friends who laughed too loud or made me feel like I was someone else. Wes said they didn't see the real me. Only he did one night. I cried in the bathroom after a call with my mum. She told me I sounded far away, like I wasn't happy anymore. I told Wes what she said. He wrapped his arms around me and whispered, "That's because she only knows the version of you that needed to be rescued. But you're not that girl anymore. You're better now." And I let him believe that, until I started seeing flashes of something darker. A reflection that didn't match the voice. It started with the mirror in our bedroom. We'd hung it above the dresser, and I used it to do my makeup in the mornings. One day, I caught Wes watching me from the doorway, eyes narrowed. I smiled and asked, "What?" He shook his head. "You're tilting your head again. It makes you look scared. Don't do that." "I'm not scared," I laughed. He stepped closer. "You look like a rabbit when you're nervous," he said, still smiling, wide-eyed, shaky, prettier when you're calm. I stared at him, waiting for a laugh. A wink, something to soften the words. Nothing came, just a slow blink, and then he left the room. That night, I looked at myself in that mirror for a long time. Tried to figure out which version of me he liked and which one he hated. I tried to be both. Wes never raised his voice, never slammed a door. He didn't need to. His silence did the work. When he was disappointed, he'd stop touching me. When I cried, he'd say, "You're doing it again. That thing where you make everything about you." When I told him I was scared of losing myself, he said, "You're not losing anything. You're just becoming someone better." I believed him until the day I found the folder. It was on his computer, one I rarely touched. He'd gone to run errands, left it open. The folder was labeled Expressions. Inside were dozens of photos, all of me, taken when I wasn't looking, sleeping, cooking, crying. In each photo he'd written notes, unflattering to puffy, pretty post-cry glow. Best angle, forehead smooth, mouth neutral, too scared, delete. I scrolled through them with shaking hands. There were videos, too. One of me brushing my teeth, another of me staring at the ceiling in bed, eyes wide open. Another one I don't even remember happening, of me curled up on the kitchen floor. After he told me I was overreacting, I watched myself rock back and forth, mouthing the word stop, and in the background, Wes whispered, "You're so close to perfect." When he got home, I was sitting on the couch, pale and silent. He kissed my cheek, noticed my expression, and said, "Don't make that face. You know I hate when you look scared." I stood, I saw the folder. He didn't ask which one, just paused, then smiled. "I thought you might." I asked him why. He said, "Because you never remember what you look like when you're hurting, and I think that's the most honest version of you." I told him I wanted to leave. He said, "No one else will ever see you the way I do. No one else could love the real you." But I wasn't crying anymore. I wasn't afraid. I was angry. I left that night, filed a report, blocked him, moved across the state. It's been for years. I've since filled that locket with a photo of myself, smiling, not perfect, not posed, but real. Some nights I still hear him in my dreams, that soft voice saying, "You're prettier when you're not scared." And I always wake up clenching my teeth, because I am scared. Still, sometimes. But I'm not his mirror anymore. I met Colton the summer after my mother died. That's important, not just context, but core. I wasn't myself that summer. Grief warped everything. Time, space, memory, and that's how he got in, through the cracks grief left behind. I was 24, living alone in a dusty little apartment above a music shop downtown, working part-time at a flower stand, mostly just floating. My friends called often, checked in, asked if I needed anything. I always said no. I didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want to keep repeating the story of watching the strongest woman I knew slip away from cancer like a candle running out of wick. I just wanted quiet, and that's exactly what Colton offered. He showed up at the flower stand one afternoon, bought a single stem of white ranunculus, said it reminded him of his grandmother. I smiled politely. He smiled longer. The next day he came back, and the next, after a week of small talk, he brought coffee. I don't remember what we talked about, only that I laughed. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, he noticed. "That's a good sound," he said. "You should do that more." He didn't ask for my number right away. He waited, let things unfold gently. I mistook that for kindness. When we finally went out to a tiny hole-in-the-wall bistro near the river, he held the door open and placed his hand lightly on the small of my back. That's when I felt it. That electric tingle, the one that feels like fate but usually ends in fire. He asked about my family. I told him the truth. My mum had passed. My dad was distant. My siblings lived hours away. He just nodded, eyes warm and watery. "You must feel unmoored," he said softly, "like there's nothing holding you down." I should have known that was the beginning. He became my anchor. Or so I thought. We moved in together 4 months later. It was fast. Everyone said so. But grief makes speed feel sacred, like you're racing time to catch joy before it disappears again. At first, he was attentive, gentle. He listened, he cooked, he fixed the broken latch on my window and strung fairy lights in the living room, because I once mentioned I hated overhead lighting. He even made a scrapbook, a real one, with glue and paper and handwritten captions. "Our summer," it said on the cover. Inside were Polaroids of us at the farmer's market, drinking wine on the balcony, holding hands in the rain. Some of the photos I didn't remember taking. One in particular, me asleep on the couch, mouth slightly open, a book in my lap. "You looked peaceful," he said. "I wanted to remember you like that." It didn't feel like flattery. It felt like documentation. The first memory he rewrote was small. We were in the kitchen. I was telling a story about my mum, how she used to make cinnamon rolls from scratch every Sunday morning. Colton paused, frowned. "No," he said gently. "You told me she made banana bread. Remember?" I blinked. "No, it was cinnamon." "Rolls always cinnamon," he smiled. "You must be remembering it wrong. You said banana bread." I wrote it down. He pulled out a little notebook from his jacket pocket, flipped through it, pointed. "See, you said it during our third date." I laughed, awkward, a little uncomfortable. Guess my memory's failing me. He kissed my forehead. "Don't worry, I'll remember for both of us." I let it slide. That was mistake number 1. The second rewrite came a few weeks later. We were sorting through an old box of mine. Photos, birthday cards, journals. I pulled out a picture of me at 17, standing on a hill next to a boy I used to date. "Caleb," I laughed. "Oh wow, Caleb, I forgot this even existed." Colton went still. "You told me you'd never had a serious boyfriend before me." Hesitated. "I mean, we were kids." He stood. "You lied." "No, I just didn't think it mattered." He shook his head, eyes glassy. "I'm trying to build something honest with you, and you're out here keeping secrets." I apologized, profusely, tried to explain, but he was already gone, not physically, just emotionally. His smile didn't come back for 3 days after that. I stopped mentioning the past. It was safer until he started replacing it. One day, I came home to find the scrapbook on the table, except the photos had changed. New captions, different dates, one read. Our first concert, August 12th. I knew we hadn't gone to a concert. Not that month. Not at all. Where did this come from? I asked. He shrugged. We went, remember? You were wearing that blue dress. You cried during the encore. I stared at the photo. I was smiling, yes. But something about my eyes looked vacant. I flipped to another page. There was a photo of us on a hiking trail. Except I hate hiking. I've always hated it. I never went here, I said. He looked wounded. You said you wanted to try new things. You said it was special. I didn't remember it, but the date was there. So I said, oh, right. I must have forgotten. That was mistake number 2. Colton liked to fill in the blanks. He started telling our friends stories. I didn't remember. She was so nervous our first date. She nearly spilled coffee on herself. I wasn't. She made the first move. Didn't, but everyone believed him. He was confident, charming, and I'd started second-guessing myself so much. I didn't argue, I just smiled. The final rewrite happened on our anniversary. He gave me a new scrapbook, leather-bound, heavy dot inside. Were photos of us. In places I'd never been. Italy, Maine, some cabin in the woods, all edited, all fake. And then, on the last page, a photo of a wedding, bride in white, groom in a grey suit. Me and Colton, but we'd never married. I stared at it, pulse climbing. This is fake, I whispered. He looked confused. No, it's our future. I pointed to the caption. This says June 4th, 2023. That's last month. He nodded. It already happened. You just haven't accepted it yet. Something broke in me. I told him I needed air. Walked to my friend Amelia's place, 5 blocks away. I hadn't seen her in months. That's how isolated I'd become. She took one look at me and said, "You look like a ghost." I stayed the night, turned off my phone. In the morning, there were 47 missed calls, 19 texts, all from Colton. You're confused. Come home. This isn't like you. Don't erase everything we built. I forgive you. I'll always forgive you. I went to the police. They said there wasn't much they could do unless I had proof he was dangerous. Manipulation wasn't a crime, but one officer, a woman maybe in her 40s, pulled me aside and said quietly, "Change your locks, get a burner phone, start over." So I did. I moved 2 states away, changed my number, got a new job. I threw away the scrapbooks. Every page, every caption. But sometimes I still wake up in a sweat, thinking I'm back in that apartment. I look in the mirror and wonder if the girl staring back is really me. Colton once said, "Memories are just stories you tell yourself." Maybe that's true, but I finally learned how to tell my own again. And in mine, he doesn't get to rewrite anything.